prescribed, uh, let's see, perspective junkie, um, inner engineer. I'm just really big into self-development. I come from this through my own experiences, through my own personal crisis. So it started maybe 2017, around there. Long story short, I wanted to end my life, and I ended up getting into a inpatient program. So I was in an inpatient program for like 5 weeks or so, got out, continued to do the work, and just always had the goal of to be 1% better than I was yesterday, and just continue that goal. And through the process, I found myself helping friends, and maybe helping some other people, and it it seemed to be where my true north was pointing, if that makes any sense. So from that, I started a podcast, I wrote a book, and I'm currently in a podcast with a good friend of mine, Karen. Pieces to Wellness is the name of the podcast. So at Pieces to Wellness on Instagram is the best way to find me. I'm pretty active on that platform.
Perfect. Tell us a little bit about the podcast and the spirit around it for those who may not know.
Sure. The podcast itself, Pieces to Wellness. So this kind of idea that I have, I look at mental health as a spectrum. On one end is illness, on one end is wellness. And there's all these different pieces to wellness that we have to do in order to stay on the wellness side of that spectrum. And those pieces can be medication, meditation, um, setting boundaries, being active, eating right, healthy sleeping patterns. Just a slew of things, but whatever works for you is, as long as it doesn't harm you or anybody else, suggest you continue to do that. But there's all these different pieces you can put in your toolbox. And as we become more aware and we get into specific situations, we can work towards using those tools in a helpful manner for ourselves.
I think that's so true. It reminds me, and I don't know if you're like a comic guy, but it reminds me of like Batman. How there's a
Sure.
tool belt
Yeah.
and like support is there, close
Yes.
friends, a loved one.
Absolutely.
And some days you don't want to be around people, so they're not gonna be a resource you pull out, but that person you come home to or that person that loves you, they could inspire you to say, "Hey, you had a hard day. Let me help you do better." When you were going through your situation, you mentioned that you tried to end your life. Looking back, what were some of the situations and maybe behaviors that were leading you up to that point?
Sure. A lot of it was just not being aware at all. I would say a lot of black and white thinking, like this always happens to me. I never catch a break, kind of thing. And the sheer fact that I just didn't know better. I didn't know any better. This was my life. I just assumed I was dealt with a shitty deck of cards, and this is what I have to deal with. I didn't understand that, yes, these were the cards I was dealt with, but it's my choice in how I choose to play these cards. And we have that choice. So we can play the cards the best we can. And if we last to the end of the round, we can get another deck of cards, we can get another hand of cards, and we can play those the best we can. And that to me is really what's in our control of things that we can do.
Was that hard for you to identify that these are just, to use your analogy, the hand that I'm dealt, but that doesn't mean that I can't continue to go forward and get another hand dealt to me?
100%. Yeah, I think, like I said earlier, I'm a perspective junkie. So I believe that a huge variable in this is how we look at things. And it's the story that we tell ourselves. It's that an internal dialogue that we tell ourselves that dictates every future move that we're going to make. And it's just so important. And if you don't know, you don't know. It's like we can only rise to the level of our training. And if you don't know, then you don't know. There's other pieces, like going back to the pieces of wellness. There's components to that where we need compassion. We need reminders that, hey, I'm human. I'm doing the best that I can, and that's okay for today. Tomorrow, hopefully, I can do a little bit better. It's through these actions that we do, through these situations. That's how we grow.
And I see there's so many people struggling with that because today's price isn't tomorrow's price, right? And
Yeah, yeah.
you have people who are struggling, let's say the workaholic, and a lot of men, for example, struggle with that. And many women too, but for the men out there, a lot of them struggle with, okay, I need to work 12, 14, 16 hours because I want to be that provider for my household, right? Safety and security, as a lot of men are taught through society and culture. Now, if they're struggling with, let's say, burnout, some people may, or some men may say that, okay, I have to make a decision. Do I take time and reduce my workload and then ultimately reduce my burnout, which could affect my lifestyle? Or do I continue to push forward and maintain that lifestyle because, hey, everyone around me is happy even though I am miserable? Do you see some people struggling with those choices where they want to have a healthier, better outcome, but what they maybe have to give up, they're not ready to give up yet?
You said it, you nailed it. Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. It's in order to gain, in order, and let me say this, it's not necessarily to gain. In order to move forward, in order to bring new things into our lives, we have to let go of the old things. We have to create space. And those old things that we have to let go of, they may be good. They may bring helpful things in our lives, but this new thing is what we're looking to achieve. It's what we're striving for, and that needs space. So no matter what we face, whatever action we do, there's somewhere we may not even see it. There's another action or reaction equal to or more happening around us. So it's through that awareness. It's staying aware and realizing like, hey, I may not have this. And also, if we recognize that pattern of thinking, hey, I don't have this, I'm comparing with other people, that whole pattern right there and being aware of it is a reminder that if I'm focusing on the things that I don't have, I need to start taking inventory on the things that I do have and be grateful for those things.
When it comes to taking inventory of someone's life, what do you think are some of the obstacles in general that people face that prohibits them from doing that?
Ooh, there's many, I'm sure. It's I would say it's very individualistic, but we get caught up, like you said, we get caught up in if I do more, if I help more, whatever I do for somebody else is a reflection of my worth. And that's a story that we've been told, when we were kids. It's just, unfortunately, it's just not true. We're all worthy. We all can bring something to the table. I may not do something as well as you. You may not do something as well as me, but that doesn't take away from who we are and our worth. So I think we attach our worth on either things or things we can do for other people. And if I mess up, I make a mistake, I'm trying to help you out and I fail at that, I automatically look at myself as a failure. So I identify with that problem. Instead of standing back and becoming the observer, I identify with whatever that is. If I'm feeling shame, if I'm feeling like a failure, I identify with that and I become that, which is, again, it's not how it is. It's our feelings are there as are indicators, but they don't they're not necessarily facts. They don't have to dictate every move that we make. They're there to let us know like something, like if you're in a car and your warning light comes on, check engine light comes on, that's what those are. Hey, something's off here. Something's out of alignment. Let me stop. Let me stay still, take a breath and figure out what that is.
Yeah, it's like it becomes their identity, right?
Right. Exactly. Yep. Yeah, it
That's
becomes our
scary.
identity. It is scary because we're so much more than that. We're so much more than what we put on ourselves. And again, it's that story we tell ourselves. If I go through experience, picture it this way. If there's anybody listening, if they have a little toddler or a little child running around, they're learning to walk. Okay. You have this 2 year old, 3 year old, however old, many years old, they're learning to walk. Okay. They're falling, they're grabbing onto things. Can you imagine if that child went 3 steps, fell over, and got back up and was like, "Oh, I suck at this. I can't do it. I'm going to give up." Right? And then not only is he going to say that to himself, but then the child's going to go, "I'm going to try this again. Oops, I fell again. I must be a failure. I must not be good at this." And that story again just is going to snowball through the years of our lives. And unfortunately, until we become aware of that story, we start to live that story, and that story can have unhelpful effects on our lives.
I was actually having a similar conversation with my mother and father this weekend, and I shared with them that I've noticed those younger than me, and this is anecdotal, it just seems that there's this hesitation to fail, to make a mistake, right? I've made many mistakes in my life. I'm going to continue to make many mistakes, whether it's in romantic relationships, professional relationships, friendships, or otherwise. But I always looked at mistakes as an opportunity to learn, not only about the
Perfect.
situation, but about yourself, right? If you were to remove all of the areas where you could potentially make a mistake, I don't see how people can grow. And to your point, if someone is struggling with something, let's say they've been hurt and they're looking to change that, but maybe in their psyche, they're like, okay, Tim, what if I try and I don't succeed? So they don't even try and they just stay in the chaos because they've accepted it. I find that to be so unsettling because what I take away from that is I'm not even worthy to try,
Exactly. It's a
right?
disservice. It's a disservice to ourselves. It's a disservice to ourselves. And sometimes we can look at it as if Train came to me and he said, "I failed at this, I'm not going to try," how would I respond to him? And how would I talk to him? Would I talk to him the same way I talk to myself? Probably not, right? We're more hard on ourselves. I don't know necessarily the reason for that, but if we can step back and become the observer and say, would I talk this way to a friend or loved one? And that's it, just that alone, I feel that can kind of snap you out of it enough to bring you back to the moment and say, if I don't try, then I'll never know what my potential is.
What role then do you think maybe worthiness or self-worth, self-value,
Oh,
self-care plays in people's
huge,
hesitation to even make the step forward?
huge. It's such a huge step. I believe that self-love, having a foundation of self-love, is is probably the biggest game changer of it all. Because again, that foundation of self-love is where everything's going to grow. So if I grow something from a self-love deficit, whatever those, let's say, negative thoughts are, that's what's going to grow. I'm going to have negative results from those negative thoughts. Now, if I have a self-love foundation that's pure and strong, and I have positive, helpful thoughts, I'm going to have positive, helpful outcomes. So
For
yeah,
yourself, or
I think it's sorry, but I think it's a big variable to answer your question. It's a very big variable in
I
this.
absolutely agree with you. I've had people tell me that the people that they're going to leave behind, they've known for so long. And what if they start to make these changes and now they begin to see the people around them no longer will be benefiting the new version of themselves. But then when they look at the group over there and they're like, what if I'm not good enough for them? And then they're like, I don't want to be alone. And I tell every single person the beginning of that journey is always going to be alone, right? Because you're going to have to do a lot of self-reflection. Sure, there's going to be family and friends around you, right? But when you have that conversation with yourself for the first time and say, okay, what is it that you like about yourself? What is it that you love about yourself? What is it that you can do better? And what is it that you don't like about yourself? And they freeze,
They do freeze.
right?
A lot of people are
Right.
scared of that mirror.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because the mirror doesn't only tell you what's on your shoes and the fancy pants that you're wearing, right? Right? It can show you a lot
Yes.
on the inside as well. When it comes to telling people no, family, friends, coworkers, or romantic interests, what are your thoughts on the difficulty of that for people telling others no who are trying to stop the people pleasing because they want to do the self-care and the self-love?
Very difficult, and I think it matters going back to the self-love that you had mentioned. If somebody is coming from a place of a self-love deficit, it's going to be a much harder task to say no because that's how we gain it. If I do something for you, that means I'm worthy. If I show you I can do something for you and help you, that means you'll care about me. It's that lie we've been sold, but it's ingrained in some of us. You know, you have that self-love deficit, that mountain is going to be extremely, extremely hard to climb. It's possible, yes. And I encourage you all to take that step and climb because I think the first step is going to be the hardest. Like you said, in the beginning, it's going to be lonely. And it may be lonely on different parts of your journey too, because I think somebody that starts the journey, the process is continuing up that mountain. Every time we reach a new mountain, we're not at the top of it, we're at the bottom of another mountain. So we just keep climbing, right? Because it's not necessarily about the destination, it's about the journey. So if we can understand that if I say no to somebody, or if I say, hey, you know what, not today, I can't do that. I'd like to help you out today, but I can't. So I think the language that we use is also very important in this. Some people just don't have the language. Like I want to say no, but society has told us that if I say no, that I'm bad, I'm mean, I'm cruel, I don't care. You know, and then my partner or friend or whoever says, well, you said no to me, you must not care. It's no, I do care, but I can also care about me. It's not one or the other. I care about me and I care about you. And in fact, I care about me so much, that's why I'm saying no. Because going back to your earlier point with burnout, if I make all these commitments and I say yes to you, how many times am I saying yes to somebody? Are those actually saying no to myself? If I'm not okay, nobody around me is going to be okay. So I need to take care of myself in order to help serve my circle better. It's a win-win.
I'd love to see the tally of people like that. So how many times they told themselves no and how many times they told other people yes,
Yeah.
right? That
It'd be
column
pretty
for the
scary,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
Pretty
I can
scary.
see like 101, 105.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's tough. It's tough to tell.
It's tough.
It's tough to tell. It's tough to say no to something that is giving you value, such as a person, place, or thing, because you're already telling, to your point, right? You're already telling yourself no because you don't have, you're from a deficit. So now what I'm deficit in, I need to go and get it from a different well. And that well could be a friend, it could be a coworker, it could be a family member. And the more dependent you become on other people and less dependent on yourself, then you have codependency issues, right?
Right. Very well said. I that's just it's a scary line because I always say I'm big on being an inner engineer. I work on myself. I work on myself for me in order to help you better. Because if I know and I love myself to the full point, and I'm not saying I'm at that point, I'm not at that level, but if I have this full um, encompass of love as my foundation, and I know who I am, there's not a single person out there that's going to be able to tell me different. I can come towards you and say I can't do that today, and they can say, "Oh, well, you can if you just do this." It's almost like it's like the mosquito in your ear. You just brush it off, and you just go, "Actually, no. I know my what I'm my capabilities right now. I know my limits." And you may look at my capabilities and limits and say, oh, well, geez, you're weak. You can't handle this. Or, my other buddy, he would be there for me and you can't. Again, it's that level of awareness. Those are all, in my book, those are all manipulation tactics. If you cared about me as a friend or however you say you care about me, you'd understand when I just say, hey, you know what? I can't today. I might be able to say, hey, you know what? There's no way I can do it today, but is it possible to help you tomorrow with whatever you need? Tomorrow I'm free. I just had a rough day. I've had a full day. I just don't think I can manage to help today.
Come on, Tim. I thought you were my boy. You're supposed to
Right.
help me.
Right. There it is. Right. And then
The
when
guilt.
you say right, and then when you say that, is it really coming from a place of care? You know what I mean? Like I understand you need to get something done and you have your stuff, but we all have our stuff. You know what I mean? There's the perspective again. Like we have to sit back, become the observer and say, I'm looking at life and this situation through my lens. Terrain is looking at things in his life in his lens. His isn't wrong and mine isn't right. They're just different lenses. If we can get curious enough, have a conversation, use our words, and then we can come to a little understanding and say, hey, you know what? I'm sorry, you're right. You know what? I understand you can't help me today, but I could use you tomorrow if you can. Great. I'll be there tomorrow. You tell me the time and place, I will be there. Boom, it's done. Right? It's a win-win for both parties.
I used to have a few friends. We're no longer friends for a number of years, but they're similar to that, where anytime they planned something, it was we had this group chat and be like, hey, me and so, me and Johnny, we're going to the restaurant here on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Whoever can come, let's go. Instead of asking if it works for people's schedule, it was always, and then when you don't show up, it was, oh, you think you're too good for us? It's like, well, you didn't want me there anyways because you didn't even ask me if I was free. Right? So it
Yeah.
was it was interesting. And then because when you shared that, it reminded me of that. I remember one day I was reading the message and I created this rule for myself, a boundary, where I said that anytime someone asks me to do something last minute and it's not an emergency, my answer, regardless of what it is no. Because they really didn't want me there because they didn't even ask if I was free. They planned it amongst the two people or three people, and then they told the rest of the five, and I was included in that, that if you want to come, you can come, and then if you don't show up, it's a problem. And that boundary has saved me because they had actually a big blow up about a year ago in the group chat where there's all these kinds of names. People are bringing things up from like 10, 15 years
Mhm.
ago.
That's a
And I'm sitting
shame.
back with my popcorn and I'm like, oh my God, they're breaking up. Doesn't it remind you of a breakup?
Right,
You did
right.
this 5 years ago to me, and now you're doing this again. You're just bringing up everything because the wound never healed. The
Absolutely.
boundaries weren't set. How important is it for people to set boundaries with people in the name of self care and self love?
Oh, it's like top priority, especially when you're linking it with that. As I said before, with everything, if you come from a place of a self-love deficit, it's going to be extremely difficult to do those boundaries and to set those boundaries. And I always like to say that there's two parts to doing that with boundaries is there's setting a boundary, but there's also holding a boundary. Like you said, you became accustomed to just saying if it's last minute, you knew what last minute meant in your mind. You defined that before anything and you had it set. So when someone comes to you and you define that as last minute, you're like, no, there it is. Boom, you set it, it's set. Now you have to hold it. And if they come again, oh, the next day they come at you with, oh, you did this, you have to hold it again. No, this is what I'm doing this to help me, and in reality, it's also helping you because if you're in my circle, I can show up 100%. I can show up better. If I'm not okay, you're not going to be okay. We're not going to be okay because you're going to come at me with this, oh, you didn't do this for me. Remember 10 years ago? And I might get sucked into that pattern myself, right? And if I'm not 100%, if I'm saying no, and then you're pushing and pushing, I may might fall into that trap and start with you. Well, yeah, if 10 years ago you did it to me, oh, you did this first to me. No, you did. And it's like, you know what? None of that really matters. What matters is right here, right now. This is where we have to say. And if I'm saying no, that's good enough. That's it.
Absolutely. Like they're bringing up things that, oh, you bought the same pair of jeans of me 10, 15 years ago. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't even know you guys at this point.
Yeah, that's
Right.
ridiculous.
Right.
It's
Like I
ridiculous.
said, Tim, I was just there with my popcorn. I was like, oh my
Yeah.
God, they're breaking up. It reminds me, like, I've dated a girl that was like that.
Yeah.
Right. And I think many people have dated men and women and everything in between that, either it's a romantic relationship, friendship, or family member where you go to them and you say, this is where my life is going. And you're respectful for the most part. You say, this is where my life is going. It's not you. It's just I'm making this for me.
Perfect.
And maybe
Perfect.
you can come along. And some people will lash out because they either knew that it was coming or it's like the cockroach underneath the table. You flash that light and they start to scurry, the bugs. And it's like they don't know how to handle it because rejection is tough for a lot of people. Those boundaries, setting, creating, and maintaining, what role do you
Right.
think that maybe shame and guilt plays in people struggling to do any of those, to create, maintain, and hold their boundaries?
Sure. Again, I think it's that's again linked to the self-love deficit. If I'm coming from a place of lack, that's going to be much harder to set, to maintain, and to hold. It's because of that back and forth. If somebody else is going to come at you with, oh, well, I did this for you 2 years ago, or oh, I thought you cared about me. That's going to trigger that inner, that shame or guilt is going to trigger that inner core belief of, hey, I'm only good when I'm helpful. So I'm going to drop all my values, I'm going to drop my boundaries, and I'm going to do this. But it's a scary, like I said, it's a scary thing to do because in order to hold and maintain those boundaries, you may end up being lonely. You may have that period of time where it's just you. You lost that connection with your friends or that one group, or maybe it's just that one friend. But it's not always easy for the person too. It's I always go back to, like, you had mentioned, say with your partner, like you can come too. It's I set a boundary. I'm not saying no to you. I'm saying I'd like you to come, but I can't have you come when you act this way. I need this and this. My door is open. You can come right in. But if you're going to come in my house with your boots on and track mud throughout my house, I can't allow that. That's not against you. Don't take it personally. This is not saying I don't care for you. It doesn't mean I don't want you here. I do want you here. And that boundary that I'm setting, if you choose to take off and not abide by it, I have to hold that boundary. It's going to hurt because I may have lost somebody that I care about. But at the same time, we're going to encounter losses in our life. But the most greatest loss that we will encounter is losing ourselves if we allow that process to happen. If you lose yourself, all bets are off. That's it. So I have to stay with, my own values, my own boundaries, and do what's right for me.
You mentioned communication. What are some of the ways that people in general can improve their communication, let's say either with themselves and with others?
Well, there's a few aspects to that. I learned a lot from DBT, dialectical behavior therapy. There's a piece to that interpersonal effectiveness that helps with that. It's kind of asking for what you want in a healthy, respectful manner. And there's communication is key, but it's also managing your emotions. It's regulating your emotions, regulating yourself, and being aware enough if you come at me with something and whatever it is, you didn't mean to, trigger the situation, but I get escalated and I'm now above baseline, I have to recognize that because now I may not be responding to you, but I'm going to be reacting to you. And I'm going to be reacting from my own emotions, if that makes sense. So that is not going to, there's no alignment there. So I guess the first piece of that would be self-awareness. You have to regulate yourself. And then the second piece would be to get curious and ask questions. Hey, I'm unsure what you mean by this. This sounded like you wanted me to be there at 5 and it's 4:30. I only have a half hour of leeway here, and no one told me until just now. So I'm going to have to rush. I can probably be there, but I might be 5:15. Is that okay with you, or do you need me there at 5? Because if you need me there at 5, I'm going to have to say, no, I cannot do that because this was last minute. So clear, concise. You have to, again, stick to your values, stick to your boundaries, know what's best for you. And I think through that process, get curious, ask questions. Of course, be as kind as possible. There's going to be situations where obviously it may not be warranted to be kind, but if you're able to be kind, I would recommend being kind because that's on you. How you respond is on you. That's my task. If you come at me with something and you're above baseline, you're yelling and you're triggered about something, and this is all out of hand and my emotions are going crazy and you're coming at me, that's on you. Okay. Now, how I respond, that's on me. So if I can step back again, take a breath, if I can quickly assess the situation in like those milliseconds and just say, hey, look, hold on a second. Tell me a little bit more about why you're upset right now. That's the getting curious. That's asking questions. It comes off as it's non-confrontational. Okay. Like if I said to you, you came to me with something, I'm like, well, you shouldn't be asking me that. That can come off as confrontational, right? And if I say, hey, instead of saying you shouldn't be coming at me with this, I could say, well, what are your thoughts? Can you tell me more about it? And if you have any questions, if you're unsure, ask, because you not only want to be clear and concise and specific with your words, but you also want the information that you're presented with to be clear and concise.
Because that's in an effort to protect yourself.
Sure, sure. And even protect each other, right? Because if you're a friend of mine, I don't want to lash out at you. But sometimes we all, again, with our lenses, we all have our things inside of us. So if I'm not working on myself, if I'm not to a level of awareness where I can recognize my baseline and you come at me or something, I may respond in an unhelpful manner. And that's no good for either of us.
I like how you clarified that because you put the responsibility on both people but for different parts.
Sure.
I think there's so many of us, right, who go out into the world and think that, well, it's everyone else's responsibility to be able to get along with me. No,
Unfortunately, that's not how it works.
that's not how it works. It's your responsibility to be able to get around with everyone else.
Yeah. And look at it this way. You may not need to get along with everybody else. You can be as a very baseline thing, be kind. I'm going to hold the door for you. If you don't smile and you don't say thanks, that's on you. That's not on me. That's not a reflection of who I am. I held the door. That was my task. It's the same thing where, as you said before, when people come to you with things about, hey, can you help me out today? I really need you. That's their task. Their task is to ask. My task is to respond in the way that's best for me. If they, again, the ball's back in their court now, they don't like that, that's on them. I'm not saying you're a bad person and I'm never helping you. I'm saying I need to do what's best for me today, and I can't help you today.
That's wise because some people look at it the other way. It's that I'm going to do what's best for you at my expense instead of saying that, hey, what is it that I can actually commit to? And if I could commit to this, then let's do it. But then there's, as we talked about earlier, the guilt, the shame, the people pleasing,
And the burnout, like you
because,
said.
and the burnout, right? Because some people will dream up a reality in their mind, right? So for example, if I tell Tim no, who asked me something, is he going to tell our circle of friends that I wasn't there for him? And now instead of a conversation between you and I, it could be everything, it could be between a number of people. But we should operate in reality and say that today doesn't work for me, Tim. But how about tomorrow? How about
Exactly.
Tuesday?
Perfect.
Another day, right? That extra step, do you think that is difficult for some people to do?
Sure. Yeah, it is difficult. And it may be difficult for me to hear if I'm not ready for it either. Even though it's completely in the realm of healthy and respectful, because you're not saying no. You're saying, I just can't do it today. You're not saying, no, Tim, I'll never help you. You're saying, hey, what about Tuesday? Would Tuesday work? You're giving options. You're just not, it's not a now or never, this or that. Hey, let's get curious. I'm going to ask questions and see how we can figure this out together, right? Because if there's that together piece, that support, that connection, that community that we're missing in this world is, if I have that connection, if I have that support from you backing it up in a conversation, it makes me feel a little bit more at ease. But if you're coming at me, and we're just humans, some of our flight response comes into play. The stress response gets alerted, right? And I'm all like this. So if you're coming at me, I'm automatically like, oh, this is danger, danger. And I need to tense up and I need to protect, right? I need to survive.
When it comes to goal setting, what are some of the ways that we can set healthy goals for ourselves?
For ourselves, I would think the best, again, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier about being specific. So you have to define what you want and you have to be specific, clear and concise as much as you can. Because you can say, I want this, but you're not saying what I'm able or what I'm willing or not willing to do to get that. You're just saying, I want this and there. I need to say, I want this, but these are things that I'm not willing to do to get this. And then what does this look like? So be clear, be specific. Also make it achievable. Take it in steps because if we make it achievable, it's going to be, that mountain isn't that big, right? There's not this grand thing in front of us like, oh, I don't know if I can attain this. But if we make it achievable, we achieve it, we're gaining a little bit of self-esteem in the process, self-mastery. And then once we're there, we can raise the bar. Now I'm going to raise the bar a little bit more. And then now I'm going to achieve the next goal. So you have this one big goal, break it up into pieces, make it more achievable, define it. Worry about getting stronger later. You just need to get to that first step because that first step's the hardest. It's like jumping into a pool. Sometimes you just got to jump in. You dip your foot and you're like, oh, I don't know. Just jump. Don't worry about if the timing is right. Don't worry about if my jump is good enough. Take that time and energy and put it into how is this going to work out when I land? Make the landing good. Make the process after the landing. Use the energy for that instead of worrying about, is this the right time? Because like I said, that first step, it's probably some of the most resistance that we see with people is that first step. We just become stagnant and then we don't do that first step because I've tried this before. I've failed. I'll never do it again. I can't do it. I'm not good enough. But it's disrespectful to ourselves, right? If I don't take that step, if I don't, like you said before, if I don't make mistakes, how will I know what my capabilities are? How will I know what I can achieve? I mean, if you're not making mistakes, that means you're not trying, right? And if you're not trying, how are you ever going to achieve that goal?
Oh yeah, you can't hit the target if you don't know what the target is.
Right. Yes. Perfect. Perfect. Perfectly said. If you don't know what the target is, you're never going to hit it. And you're going to be, unfortunately, chasing it. You're going to be spending energy and time looking for the target, and you don't know what it is. You have to know what that target is, what it looks like, what you're willing to do in order to get that target, what you're not willing to do to get that target. And then once you get there, then you can set that target further back or put it up a hill, whatever you need to do, but incrementally raise the bar, make it achievable.
Tim, let me ask you one final question before I let you go, but I want to give you 3 wishes for this question. What are 3 things you wish people knew about the benefits of self-awareness and why?
Oh, that's a monster question, my friend. Oof, I honestly think the benefits are endless. I think they're just endless. There's so much doing this work. So many people look at, like you had mentioned before, this person should like me and this person should do this. And I think this should be this way. So why isn't it this way? And now that's creating suffering in my life because I want to change something I can't change. So what do? We look within. That's what we do. We start within. If I want to make a change in the world, I start living that change. I become that change. And that may spread out, and if it doesn't, I know that I did what I could. I know I did my best. I know that I stuck to my values. I know I achieved some goals. And, I was, again, if you define success, if you define happiness, those are the people that will achieve it. If you don't define it, you're never going to achieve it. You're going to be chasing something for the rest